Hey guys, welcome to another video, and in this one I will show you what I think are the best teams for Roblox Legend content for both new and beginner players. This is something that I've been asked a lot since I started this channel, so this video is a long overdue. But before we start, I want to thank you guys for the absolutely massive support I've received since I published previous video about best characters to build for new players, which I'll leave in the video description below. As that video currently has over 3,000 views and I've gained over 70 subscribers from that video only, which is absolutely insane for a small channel like mine. To celebrate, tomorrow I will do a live stream at around Marvel Future Fight's daily reset time, and I hope you guys can come and join, as I plan to do live account reviews and roasts, as well as test every single CTP on my tier 4 and tier 3 level 80 characters in both PvE and PvP, as I've purchased the 24-hour item which gives me free CTP unequipped. So if you can join on tomorrow's live stream, and if you have any questions about your account, I will answer them there to the best of my knowledge, and we'll have fun testing various characters with multiple CTPs in both PvE and PvP. So without further ado, let's get started with the current video. Since this video is aimed towards new and beginner players, let's first lay the foundation for your World Boss teams. In World Boss Legend, you're using teams of 3 characters that are either tier 3 or transcendent potential, and you can play it for rewards up to 5 times a day, which means that you need to build 15 characters in total to maximize the daily rewards you get from this game mode. You should build your team so that you have only one character that will deal the damage to the boss, the DPS character, while the 2 other characters are there to provide the DPS character with passive buffs, either through their leadership or their support buffs, to make your world boss runs as smooth as possible. Since in the previous video I talked a lot why I believe these 5 characters are your best option to build as your first DPS characters as a beginner player, I do not want to waste too much time here talking about them, as you can check the reasons why in the previous video, which I'll leave the link in the description below. But in a nutshell, all these characters are easy to acquire, they're all native tier 1 characters, all of them are proc friendly, and you have their rotations in the previous video, by the way. They do not require CTPs and so on, which makes them really an attractive option for new and beginner players. So now that we've covered which 5 DPS characters you should build for your first DPS characters for World Boss Legend content, let's check what leaders and what support characters should you use to make your World Boss runs as smooth as possible. So for the first team we have Hulk in the DPS, and for leadership and support I selected Sif and Green in her newest uniform, and Green Goblin in his Red Goblin uniform. So Sif in leadership position gives combat types, which Hulk is, 30% increased physical attack, and Hulk deals physical damage, and 30% increased HP, which both increase his survivability and his damage, as Hulk's damage in Titan uniform scales based on his maximum HP. So the more HP he has, the higher damage he'll deal. So Sif is one of the best leadership and support characters for Hulk. She also has a support passive which increases damage dealt to boss types by 40% to all allies, so it will apply to Hulk as well. So basically if you put her in leadership position, Hulk can double dip in both leadership and support passive she provides. For a support character, I put Green Goblin in his Red Goblin uniform, as his passive applies only to villains and increases damage dealt to both heroes and villains by 45%. So with this team, Hulk will actually deal insane amount of damage in World Boss content and other content as well. So if you build your Hulk like this and give him CTPs or Obelisk that I recommended in my previous video, you'll have no trouble clearing World Boss Legend content. Also, before we continue with the other teams, keep in mind that these might not be the best supports you can have for certain characters, but remember this video is aimed towards beginner players, and I want to put as low number as premium supports I can, and I want every single or most of the supports to be really acquirable through normal means like Dimension Mission purchase or biometrics from Shadowlands, etc. So keep that in mind, please. For the next team, we have Spider-Gwen as your DPS character, and as a leadership character, I selected She-Hulk. She-Hulk is an absolutely amazing leadership character. She applies to all allies a damage buff, which increases their damage dealt to male types by 55%. So that applies to almost every single world boss except Jean Grey and Black Swan. So you'll want to replace She-Hulk by another support or leadership character once you get to those bosses. But the great thing about She-Hulk is she doesn't require her uniform. You can use her in her without uniform and she'll increase the damage by 50%, or you can buy her uniform, second uniform for gold, which increases that leadership by additional 5%, or if you want to spend crystals, you can buy her newest uniform, get an additional 10% damage bonus, but it's really not necessary. For a support character, I selected White Fox. White Fox is one of the best supports, if not the best support in the game. You can now buy her from the shop for 1.5k crystals, I think, and she'll automatically be tier 2, so you'll be able to use her immediately, and her support passive, even without uniform, increases damage dealt to supervillains by 60%. This is an absolutely amazing support passive, and it applies to characters that have a leadership tag, so from this list she can apply her leadership to both Spider-Gwen and the next team, Captain Marvel, so you know that you can switch characters if you haven't built Spider-Gwen but decided to build Captain Marvel first, you can actually swap the supports between them. I think Shuri also has a leadership tag, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think she does. So you can also use White Fox as a support for Shuri later on. So yeah, this team is absolutely amazing, and you do not need White Fox's uniform. You do not need She-Hulk's uniform. This team will wreck world bosses if you build it like this. Spider-Gwen is an absolutely amazing DPS character. For the third team, we have Captain Marvel as a DPS character, and for a leadership character, I selected Ronan in his newest uniform. Ronan is one of, if not the best support leadership character for universal types, as if he's a leader character or put in a leadership position, he gives 50% increased attack to all universal characters you have on your team, as well as 36%, I think, increased defenses for every single universal character in your team. And of course, Captain Marvel is a universal type, so she receives buffs from his leaderships, but also Ronan has a support buff, which also applies to all allies that are universal, which increases damage dealt to both heroes and villains by 40%. So having Ronan in leadership position absolutely massively boosts Captain Marvel's damage output to overall boss content, and is probably one of the best supports and leadership characters you can use for Captain Marvel as your main DPS. As a support, I selected Angela in her newest uniform, as she gives 40% increased damage to villains, to your superhero allies, and since Captain Marvel is a superhero, she actually gets to use the Angela's leadership. And the reason I selected Angela, I know that there are some better support characters, is because Angela is really easy to get, as are all these characters. You can get them from Dimension Shop or Shadowlands Biometrics, so you will build these characters in no time. So this team, like previous teams, is an absolutely amazing team, and will carry you a long way in multiple World Boss Legend content. For the team number 4, we have Hela in her newest uniform as a DPS character, and for a leadership, I selected Cyclops in his newest uniform. When you put him in a leadership position, he gives 45% increased attack and 35% increased defense to all of his allies, but he also has a support passive which increases energy attack by 40% to all allies. Hela deals energy damage so she can benefit from both his leadership and his support passive. For a support character, I selected Taskmaster in his, only uniform, as he gives damage buff to all allies, which increases their damage dealt to both heroes and villains by 40%. Keep in mind that in this team, you can swap Hela and put her in a leadership position, as Hela's leadership actually increases her energy attack by 60%, But if you lack damage, but if you are struggling to survive, you can keep Cyclops in a leadership position, as he also increases her defenses by 35%. So that's something to keep in mind. So finally, for the team number 5, we have Shuri as a DPS character. But Shuri is not only a DPS character; she also has a support passive, which increases damage dealt to villains by 55%, and she has a leadership which she can benefit from, as she increases all attacks by 30%. That applies to speed types. As she's a speed type, if you put her in a leadership position, she'll benefit from both her leadership skill and her support passive. When you slap additional 2 supports like Wave and Ghost Panther, Wave you can get from the shop at tier 2 for 1.5k crystals, and she applies an additional 40% damage to villains, to Shuri, and Ghost Panther, if you manage to get him from Dimension Mission secret biometric drops, he also gives her an additional 45% damage to villains. So like Hela, you should replace Shuri and put her in leadership position, as she gains bonus damage from her own leadership. But I've decided to leave this chart like this so I don't confuse new players, like for putting, like in the case team 4 above, if I put Cyclops in a DPS position and then in the team number 5 I put Ghost Panther in leadership positions, so that they don't get confused and think that they should use Cyclops and Ghost Panther as a DPS characters. No, you are still using Hela and Shuri for DPS characters. You're only keeping them at leadership position, as they have an amazing leaderships that they apply to themselves. Now, because Ghost Panther is a kind of premium-ish character, as you get it from the special biometrics that drop on Dimension missions, I've also listed a list of alternative supports you can get to replace certain supports for each of the teams. So for example, like Ghost Panther, you can get Valkyrie or Enchantress biometrics from the Dimension missions, and they're also great supports. So if you manage to get Valkyrie before you get Ghost Panther, you can buy her uniform, get her to tier 2 and buy her uniform, and use her as a replacement for any of these supports, really. You can also do that if you buy Mystique from the shop, but she costs 2.5k crystals, or you can buy Nick Fury from the Legendary Battle for also 2.5k crystals and replace any of the supports I listed there. So if you have any of these supports and you do not that are listed on the alternative list, and you do not have any of the supports that are listed in the best for all boss teams category, you can easily replace one of the supports or leadership characters with a character that is on the alternative list. So that's something to keep in mind. Finally, do not forget to replace the Hela to be on a leadership if you need more damage rather than defenses that Cyclops gets, and you should always put Shuri in a leadership position if you use her as a DPS, because she also increases damage, increases all attacks to speed types, and she is a speed type. So this is something that I think a lot of new players will benefit from when they build teams like this, and as they will no longer struggle to clear World Boss Legend content. And not only stage 1, with these teams they can push to stage 9 and further, even with bad cards and low peers, because these teams are structured so well and they do not require many premium supports. I've tried my best to ignore all premium supports that require seasonal uniforms that are hard crystal vault, like Phil Coulson, like Mysterio. There are better supports than this, but this is the ultimate free-to-play, low-spender, beginner, new player World Boss teams that will really lay a solid foundation for your future World Boss clears. And later, of course, because Shuri is a support, when you build another DPS character, like for example Human Torch, you can move Shuri and replace She-Hulk as a leadership position, and use Shuri as both leadership. So Spider-Gwen can get both her leadership damage, her support passive, while also gaining a support passive from White Fox. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much everything I wanted to say in this video. So if you enjoyed it, if you think this video helped you, or if you have any other suggestion about best World Boss teams, you can hit me up in the comments down below. And I hope I'll see you guys on the live stream tomorrow, where we'll do some account reviews and roasts and test multiple CTPs as I've purchased the item that gives me free CTP. The quips will do both PV and PvP tests on multiple characters. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun there. That's pretty much it. So I'll see you guys next time. Take care.